October 15th, 1815. The most feared man in Europe is now cargo, banished, seasick, heading toward a volcanic speck that will be his living tomb. France, his France, shrinks behind him like a half-remembered dream. But empires are not only soil and cannon, they are stories. And stories, unlike exiles, cannot be chained to an island. Tonight we ask the question history prefers to whisper. When the emperor vanished, who truly ruled the French soul? Was it the Bourbon prince who crept back on foreign bayonets? Was it the tricolor flag, now forbidden, that still fluttered in secret? Or was it the memory of one man, short in stature, colossal in myth, whose name became a battle cry against every throne? The victors of Waterloo gather like undertakers. Metternich, Castlereagh, Talleyrand. Men who speak in polite clauses and carve continents between courses. Their prescription for post-Napoleonic Europe is simple. Cauterize the wound. Restore the old flesh. Pretend the revolutionary infection never happened. They choose a symbol stitched from the past. Louis Stanislas Xavier, brother of the guillotined Louis XVI. He will be Louis XVIII, King of France. He is 59, obese, gout-ridden, and has spent 2 decades wandering European courts promising not to repeat his brother's fatal clumsiness. On a spring morning he enters Paris beneath white Bourbon flags, while Allied sentries, Russian, Prussian, patrol the boulevards where his nephew once lost both crown and head. The new monarch disembarks wearing the white sash of St. Louis, but every step he takes is shadowed by 2 ghosts. The Revolution, headless, electrifying, the genie that escaped Versailles, and Napoleon, alive in every veteran's limp, every peasant's memory of land bought cheap from church estates. Louis XVIII knows he cannot unwrite 25 years, so he chooses a more delicate fraud. He will cloak himself in constitutional language while clutching royal prerogative beneath it. June 4th, 1814, the king issues the charter. Read aloud, it sings of press freedom, religious tolerance, equality before the law, virtues the revolution once claimed as its own. Yet Article 14 whispers a different tune. The person of the king is inviolable and sacred. The charter is granted, not negotiated. A gift from the sovereign, not a contract with citizens. That single clause will prove the Bourbon Achilles heel. In the galleries sit 2 France. On the right, the ultras, aristocrats returned from émigrés ballrooms, hungry to reclaim estates, titles, and the certainty of hierarchy. On the left, the doctrinaires, bourgeois lawyers, bankers, Napoleonic generals turned parliamentarians. They do not seek to resurrect Robespierre's guillotine, but neither will they bend the knee to pre-1809 absolutism. Between them stands Louis, obese, shrewd, balancing like a corpulent tightrope walker. He keeps the imperial administrative map, departments, prefects, the Code Napoleon, because, as his advisor the Comte de Blacas notes, order has no birthday. He also keeps thousands of Bonapartist officials, invoking the policy of oubli, forgive and forget, because France cannot function without the very technocrats who once served the Corsican. Yet forgiveness has limits. The franchise is narrowed to roughly 100,000 wealthy males, less than 1% of 29 million Frenchmen. Catholic missions, bankrolled by the crown, tour villages preaching that the revolution was a deicide, the murder of God's anointed. In Nantes, the bishop proclaims a day of penance for the regicide of Louis XVI. Parishioners are ordered to kneel while a black cloth drapes the crucifix. Repression feeds memory, memory feeds myth. Across France, Bonapartists create a clandestine calendar. August 15th, Napoleon's birthday, becomes Saint Napoleon, celebrated in cellars, barns, forest clearings. Police reports speak of infants who, upon birth, allegedly cried Vive l'Empereur 3 times. A silk weaver in lion stitches eagles inside jacket linings. When the garment is turned inside out at taverns, toasts erupt. The state responds with the law of September 17th, 1815. Possession of a tricolor flag carries a penalty of 1 year in irons. Yet every gendarme knows that for every flag seized, 10 more are sewn by candlelight. In the Midi, the White Terror. Royalist militias, calling themselves La Compagnie du Soleil, murder upwards of 300 former Jacobins and Protestants. The Duke of Angoulême, nephew of the king, leads a ceremonial entry into Nîmes. Behind his parade, corpses swing from olive trees. Parisian ministers cluck their tongues but send no punishment. Conspiracy germinates in the cracks of repression. 1816. The conspiracy of Grau du Roi, a planned uprising timed to coincide with the harvest. 1817. The revolt at Lyon, led by a former sergeant who fought at Austerlitz. 1819. An assassin fires on the Duke of Wellington as he rides along the Champs-Élysées. The ball misses, but Europe's courts gasp in unison. February 13th, 1820. The Duc de Berry, nephew of the king, hope of the ultras, is stabbed as he leaves the Paris Opera. The assassin, a saddler named Louvel, declares, "I strike the branch to fell the tree." The blow is less to one man than to the Bourbon future. Berry's wife, Caroline of Naples, is pregnant. Posthumously, she delivers a boy, the Count of Chambord, later the miracle child around whom die-hard legitimists will rally for half a century. But in the moment, the assassination detonates a political earthquake. Liberals are accused of regicidal contagion. Crowds sack newspaper offices. The chamber purges left-leaning deputies. Ultra-royalists seize 411 of 428 seats. Their leader, the Comte de Viel, boasts, "France is bored with liberty." He will spend the next 6 years proving the statement, slashing press freedoms, paying émigrés 1 billion francs in biens nationaux compensation, and dispatching an army of 100,000 to Spain to crush liberal constitutions there. 6 years of ultra-triumph exhaust the nation. By late 1823, even the king, ever the pragmatist, warns his brother, the Count of Artois, "You are riding a tiger. Dismount before it devours you." But Artois, heir to the throne, has waited too long for vengeance against the revolution to heed moderation. On September 16th, 1824, Louis XVIII dies. His corpse is escorted by the same National Guard battalions that once cheered Napoleon. As the cortege passes, some veterans cannot help but salute in the old imperial style, hand to bicorn, not to breast. A new king mounts the throne, Charles X, 71 years old, last son of Louis XVI, a man who learned politics in émigré salons where absolutism was never negotiable. Charles believes providence, not parliaments, crowns kings. Within months, he halves the electorate again, now barely 89,000 voters in a nation of 32 million. He creates a ministry of confession. Only ultra-Catholics may advise him. He finances the émigré aristocracy with 900 million francs, paid by bonds that saddle the state for decades. Most inflammatory, he passes the law of May 1825. Sacrilege, defined as theft of sacred vessels or public profanation, is punishable by death and public amputation of the right hand. Even moderate bishops recoil. Voltaire's ghost, they say, is laughing in the wings. Opposition regroups under the tricolor's ghost. A new generation, too young to remember the terror, too idealistic to accept absolutism, takes to the streets. They read Victor Hugo, who writes, "The scaffold is the prologue to kings." They sing La Marseillaise, though its author, Rouget de Lille, languishes in poverty. In November 1827, liberal candidates win a majority in the chamber. Charles responds by appointing the ultra-reactionary Prince de Polignac, last confidant of Marie Antoinette, as chief minister. It is, in effect, a declaration of war on constitutionalism itself. July 25th, 1830. The 4 ordinances fall like axe blades. 1. Dissolve the newly elected chamber. 2. Reduce the electorate to 25,000 landed notables. 3. Censor the press. 4. Call new elections under the narrower franchise. Charles believes the Parisians are too weary, too prosperous, too apathetic to rise. The call to arms is not summoned by generals but by journalists. Within hours, presses are smashed, editors arrested. Yet printers wheel abandoned presses into alleys, print broadsheets that read, "Legal government is suspended. Resistance is the order of the day." Students tear cobblestones. Women boil oil on rooftops. Veterans rip imperial insignia from hidden drawers and sew them onto waistcoats. 3 days of street fighting. Royal troops, veterans of Spain, hesitate before firing on crowds that sing hymns to their old eagles. Some soldiers defect en masse. Officers are shot in the back by their own men. On the 29th, the Louvre falls. Charles, hearing the news at Rambouillet, boards a carriage for Cherbourg in exile in England. The July Revolution, swift, almost bloodless compared to its predecessor, has toppled the senior branch of the Bourbons forever. The victors proclaim no republic. France, they insist, is not ready. Instead, they offer a compromise, a constitutional monarchy under the House of Orléans, cousins to the Bourbons but with revolutionary credentials. Louis Philippe's father voted for the death of Louis XVI. He will be king of the French, not king of France. A subtle but seismic shift from dynastic right to national contract. Yet reconciliation proves elusive. Louis Philippe's regime, bourgeois, cautious, obsessed with railways and bank balances, alienates both legitimists who dream of rhymes and Republicans who dream of 1793. The king's prime minister, François Guizot, advises workers, enrichissez-vous, get rich. In 1840, at the insistence of veterans, the emperor's remains sail home from St. Helena beneath a French ensign. A million onlookers line the Seine as the hearse rolls to Les Invalides. Victor Hugo writes, "The return of Napoleon is the final condemnation of the Bourbons." February 1848, a banquet of reformers, banned by police, sparks demonstrations. Guards fire. Crowds erect barricades. The National Guard defects. Louis Philippe abdicates, disguised as Mr. Smith, and flees to England. The Second Republic is born. Universal male suffrage, abolition of slavery, the right to work. Within 4 years, France, exhausted by factional chaos, will elect by landslide the very name that began our tale, Napoleon. Not the exile of St. Helena, but his nephew, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, who proclaims, "The name of Napoleon is a program in itself." In December 1848, 7.5 million votes carry him to the presidency. 4 years later, he crowns himself Emperor Napoleon III. The cycle is complete. From imperial glory to Bourbon reaction, from bourgeois monarchy to republic, and back to Bonaparte. Proof that France never truly escaped the gravitational pull of its first emperor. So what happened to France after Napoleon? It became a nation haunted by its own reflection, forever negotiating between the twin poles of revolutionary liberty and imperial grandeur. The Bourbons tried to erase the past. They were erased instead. The Orleanists tried to reconcile past and present. They were toppled by those who wanted either more monarchy or none at all. And through every upheaval, the ghost of Napoleon marched, sometimes as tyrant, sometimes as liberator, always as symbol of what France might yet become. History does not repeat, but it rhymes across centuries. The question left to us is not whether empires fall. They always do. The question is, which stories do we carry forward and which chains, though broken, still rattle in our politics, our art, our dreams of greatness?